What's going on, Washington Commanders and Baltimore Ravens Nation? I got my boy Jake on with me today. We're going to do a little mock drafting, and we're going to talk about what's next for the Baltimore Ravens with a very important offseason coming up. First of all, how you doing today, Jake?
Doing good. Sad that the Ravens season is over. Tougher still that the Bengals season is still in play, but enjoying the football season.
Oh, yeah, definitely enjoying. I'm excited to see where these conference championships going. And we'll probably get to that at some point before the episode is over. But, man, are you ready to start over? Are you ready to know what life after having a quarterback is like? Where do you stand? I know we've seen Lamar's stance. We've seen the team's stance. Where do the fans stand on the Lamar Jackson situation?
So I think that there's two really vocal sects of the Ravens fan base. I think you have the part of the fan base who's kind of sick of the drama, wants to move on, maybe not sick of Lamar, but just like wants some clarity. Who our quarterback's going to be? Are we rebuilding? Are we moving forward? And then I think there's the other side of the fan base that recognizes, I think what I recognize, which is Lamar Jackson is at worst the best quarterback in Ravens history, the most exciting player in Ravens history, and hopefully will be re-signed in Baltimore long term.
Hell yeah. So based on everything that you've seen so far, where do you think this is headed? Are we headed to tag and trade territory? Are we headed to maybe they actually just let him test free? And there's no way, right?
No. Yeah.
Not a chance in hell.
I think that the Ravens are, at very worst, they're going to tag him. Well, whether or not he plays under the tag, that I think remains to be seen to a certain extent. But if I'm the Ravens, I can't imagine a situation in which you let a guy like Lamar Jackson walk, particularly this year, where if you tag and trade him, are you going to be in position to draft another quarterback? Is a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud even on the same level as a Lamar Jackson, even long term? No. I like actually some of the quarterbacks in next year's draft class. Obviously, a guy like Caleb Williams, who I can imagine Washington Commander fans are salivating over the potential of him being in a Commander's uniform. Another guy like Drake May. More quarterbacks that I would be interested in. For me, though, the best case situation is always re-sign Lamar Jackson, give him a long-term deal, see what he can do in Baltimore in the future.
Hell yeah. Like, people forget this is a 26-year-old who's already won the MVP, is the most electrifying player in his position, and probably one of the top 5 most electrifying players this game has ever seen at the position, probably top 3. People forget that aspect. Yes, he's missed 5+ games 2 years in a row, but he doesn't have this long riddled history of being injury prone or anything like that. For the most part, he protects himself. This is no RG3 we're talking about here. This is Lamar freaking Jackson, and people need to put some respect on his name. I think Lamar would make this situation a lot easier for himself if he had an agent. Like, I feel like the whole him and his mom represent him thing, it sounds good, but bro, like, there is a whole aspect of gamesmanship that needs to be played by an agent. Like, an agent controls the narrative and all the outside noise, and they dictate that aspect of when it comes to negotiating the deal. Like, you feel where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah, I think that an agent would simplify a lot of this process. I think the media, there'd be less rumor mill churning going around. I also think there'd just be less pressure on Lamar. I think that a lot of the issue is that Lamar Jackson, I mean, his mom is representing him. His mom is his agent, and she has been historically, as moms are, she wants the best for her son, but that can also construe in ways that are a little bit more difficult. It's similar to me as the situation, actually, to use a basketball parable, that you saw with Kyrie Irving and his uncle whispering in his ear, or Kawhi Leonard and his uncle.
He negotiated that whole contract with the Clippers and the Lakers.
And so family as an agent or a representative when it comes to business can just be that slippery slope, can be really tricky for the player as well, because I'm sure there are times when Lamar's just like, I just want the deal. But like, that's your mom. Are you really going to tell your mom who's representing you to just take whatever's on the table when she believes that you can do more and you can get better?
Hell no, you can't do that. But that's why that emotional aspect of it, like, that's always going to be a huge looming factor on the situation. And I imagine y'all have to tag him. Which tag is he going to get? Is he going to get the exclusive tag, the non-exclusive? What tag do you think is coming for Lamar?
Franchise tag, exclusive tag. I mean, getting the Roquan Smith deal done was great because for the Ravens, those were their two big offseason priorities, especially after trading a second rounder and a fifth rounder for Roquan Smith. So getting Roquan Smith signed long-term opens up tag usage to the person we always knew that it was going to go to in the first place, which is Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to see how that plays out because we have a quarterback for the 2023 season in Sam Howell, but let's not kid ourselves. If Lamar Jackson becomes available, every team with a vacancy at the most important position should be put in a bid, especially teams in the NFC. Because I would imagine the destination preference would be out of conference. So we should shoot up to the top of the list of teams. Like, y'all are our Beltway brothers. We know exactly who Lamar Jackson is. We've got roasted by him before. So I would love to see Ron and them make a shot at it. I would like to at least know we were a part of conversations if that was the case, because I think he's going to get moved this offseason. I think you guys parting ways with Greg Roman, the guy who tailored an offense to Lamar's skill set, that shows me that y'all are ready to do a complete, like, moving on and transition offensively. Or do you think y'all are going to just bring another guy or promote another guy within the system already? What are y'all doing at OC?
Yeah, so for me personally, I think that they're looking at 8 or 9 different offensive coordinator candidates right now. There are 4 names that I saw that I think would make a lot of sense. A, for Lamar Jackson, B, for just the future of the Ravens offense. The number one name that I love seeing is Frank Reich. Obviously, he made Carson Wentz look like a superstar in Philadelphia when he was the offensive coordinator there. I think that he did a good job in Indianapolis. I think he got run out of there a little bit early, drew a little short stick when he was there. Eric Bieniemy, obviously from Kansas City, poaching a top offensive coordinator from a rival in conference would be great. He's obviously done wonders with quarterbacks. Obviously, he has Patrick Mahomes, so everything with a grain of salt. But, I mean, they win games and they look good when Chad Henne comes in, and Henne's 37 years old and has no significant game experience as a starter since the early
ultimate backup.
11s. Yeah. The other 2 names that I've seen that I like, Dave Canales, who's the Seattle Seahawks quarterbacks coach, coached Geno Smith to a career year this year. That's a really interesting name that I've shown or that I've seen pop up. And then Brian Angelicchio, who's the Vikings passing game coordinator. Vikings passing game is obviously elite. Kirk Cousins, for his media criticisms, still looks like a very good quarterback there. Mm-hmm. You guys are obviously very familiar with him.
Very.
So names like that I think can elevate the passing game. I think the issue with Roman ultimately came down to, similarly to what happened last offseason with the Ravens defensive coordinator with Wink Martindale, which is an inability to make in-game adjustments when they were needed, and an inability to stick with the strengths as well when they were needed. Roman's the kind of guy who utilized tight ends amazingly, and I think that was great, and it was a huge part of our offense, but wide receivers were never a huge part. That ended up being a potential problem for us. His inability to correctly use a guy like J.K. Dobbins, who's a star and has never had more than 17 carries in the Ravens offense, was mind-boggling to fans. And so just adjustments like that, I think, is what they're looking for to modernize, I think, what is otherwise an archaic offensive system.
Archaic offensive system doesn't know how to stick to what's working. These are traits that we know very well with Scott Turner, who we just got rid of here. And Greg Roman's one of the names on the top of every fan's list. Be careful what you wish for, because we know that Greg Roman can draw up and scheme up a very good running system. But with the wide receiver trio we have, would that necessarily be a good thing? Because the Ravens cannot get production out of the wide receiver position. You guys are one of the most well-run teams in this sport. But for some reason, y'all can't hit on receivers. receivers. What is going on with this, man?
Yeah, I would say that there's three things that when I look at the Ravens, I assume you're talking about drafting wide receivers.
Yep.
When you look at the Ravens' history with wide receivers, there are three things that immediately come to mind. Number one is drafting those top picks, getting those players who have elite measurables without any college success. Looking at a guy like Travis Taylor, spent a first round pick on him, ran a 4.4 40, 37, 38 inch vertical draft. Never did anything in the pros. Why? Because he didn't really show that he could be a good first round caliber wide receiver in college. Then you look at a guy like Mark Clayton, who I loved, University of Oklahoma, thought he was going to be a star, but you drafted an elite college guy with elite college production into a so-so offense, really without good quarterback play during the Kyle Bowler years. And you kind of have the reverse problem, which is I think that a guy like Mark Clayton would have been successful in other offenses. And I think that before his injuries would have been successful on a team with a mid-career Joe Flacco, with a Lamar Jackson, instead of getting a rookie Joe Flacco, who he never really developed any sort of connection with. And so that was an issue. And then you have what I call the physical tool guys the Ravens drafted like Clarence Moore, Tommy Streeter, Aaron Millett, Rashad Perryman, tall, fast, physical specimen guys who couldn't catch the ball worth a damn. And so the Ravens ended up banking on these guys somehow learning how to catch the next level when they really didn't showcase anything like that in college. And obviously all of those guys, none of them worked out for the Ravens. But you look at, for me, there's four success stories. Torrey Smith, Jermaine Lewis, Brandon Stokely, Marquise Brown. Jury's out right now on Rashad Bateman. We'll see how he turns out. But they were all very different kinds of receivers who none of the previous guys were. You had Stokely, who was just a route technician, kind of like an Ohio State kind of receiver now. You had Jermaine Lewis, who brought in two skill sets, which was elite college production at wide receiver, but he was also a really good return man. So that was a translatable early special team skill. Then you have a guy like Torrey Smith, who was tall, who was fast, had all those physical skills, but probably had a better work ethic than a Tommy Streeter or a Brashad Perriman or a Clarence Moore. And so over time, his hands got better. And then you had Marquise Brown, who was a speedster who developed immediate chemistry with Lamar Jackson and probably had better than recognized hands, although he was obviously known for his drops in Baltimore.
Yeah, man, y'all were able to flip him for first, which was amazing work because you guys do amazing work there. So let's put on our GM caps. You're going to put on your Eric DeCosta hat. We're going into this draft. We're doing a mock draft, Baltimore and Washington. What are your top two needs? You guys have a pick in both rounds 1 and 2, correct?
Yes, we have no, we don't have a second rounder. We traded it as part of the Roquan Smith deal, which for me is endlessly worth it. I know some people devalue the inside linebacker position, but considering how our defense looked pre and post Roquan Smith trade, I'm willing to take it. But yeah, I would say so. I think a lot of Ravens fans are going to say that the number one draft need is wide receiver. But speaking to our troubled history of drafting wide receiver, I would rather them go out and either trade for a veteran, a guy like a DeAndre Hopkins, a Mike Evans, maybe a Brandon Cooks, or go sign a mid-tier free agent, a Juju Smith, an Alan Lazard, someone like that, I think is a better allocation of assets than spending an early pick. For me, the two biggest draft needs are cornerback, as I think we're in desperate need of a CB2 with Marcus Peters' skill going down a little bit. And then the second need is some sort of pass rusher, be it a pure outside linebacker, a pass rushing tackle, or defensive end, something like that.
Absolutely. Okay, so in this specific mock, we're gonna act like all sunshine and rainbows. Y'all were able to square things away with Lamar, get his fully guaranteed deal out the way. Y'all still have Lamar Jackson going into this one. I'm going to set it as 4 rounds. Since we don't have a third and y'all don't have a second, we'll do a 4-round mock. And let's see if it's not too wacky. Hopefully the picks coming off the board. The Bears with the – Miles Murphy going 1. That's already crazy to me.
I will say Miles Murphy is going to test out of the roof.
Oh, yeah, freakish.
Easy out of the building numbers when he gets to the combine. And look, the Bears – they might need a pass rusher. I think Carter's the pick there, but it's not crazy for me to imagine Myles Murphy going top 5.
I don't think they're gonna stick and pick. And for the sake of this draft, we're not gonna do any trades. Okay. Even though I would consider trading all the way out of the first if it got me a second first for next year, because next year is the draft where you want to have multiple for you, because we're never bad enough to pick top 3, top 5. Shit, we don't even ever pick top 10. We're so mediocre, and the roster is so not. The roster isn't green. Like, the roster is trending to playoff team. We just never get it from the quarterback position. But yeah, man, I don't think the Bears are going to stick at 1. I think the Colts or somebody's going to move up to get the quarterback of their choice at 1. And how the board fell out. Let's see how the board shook through the first few picks.
Pretty good board for Commanders right now, given needs.
Hell yeah. Like, I know it's going to be either tackle or cornerback is what we're going to be drafting at 16. And an enticing luxury pick, Bijan Robinson, would be an interesting, because I like Brian Robinson Jr. I think we could trade Gibson, to be perfectly honest, because we don't even know how to use him at this point. And he's 4 years into his career, and we're not going to be re-signing him. It's a lot of ways this could go. I think the easy pick is to go corner or tackle. And I'm going to go and do what I think Ron Rivera and company is going to do. Ron never drafts corners round 1. He's never taken a DB in the first round his 12 years as a coach. My pick would be a corner. I'm taking Christian Gonzalez or Joey Porter Jr. But I think the pick here is going to be offensive tackle, Georgia, Broderick Jones with the 16th pick in the draft. And let's see how the board shakes out. A guy I've been looking at for you guys, I feel like Jackson Smith and Jigba would be perfect for you guys offense, but I don't know if you want to go receiver here.
I think that JSN would be an amazing fit. Obviously, route technician, slot, everything that the Ravens would look for. But if Christian Gonzalez is on the board when the Ravens make that pick,
no brainer.
I can't imagine a situation in which EDC doesn't take him. For me, Christian Gonzalez is everything that the Ravens wanted in Jimmy Smith when they took him. A tall, lean corner, great in man coverage. The kind of guy who also doesn't have to shadow number 1s right away because Marlon Humphrey is there. I think if you add a guy like Christian Gonzalez to the Ravens defense and you look and you suddenly see, okay, their top safeties, Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton, and then their DBs are Marlon Humphrey. Maybe they bring back Peters, Christian Gonzalez, Brandon Stevens. There's just a lot of wealth and talent there. And I think you take a guy like Christian Gonzalez, especially in a division where you have to play the Bengals, and you know that they're going to run at you with Higgins and Boyd and Chase, and George Pickens is going to elevate for the Steelers next year. Deontay Johnson's there. So, yeah, I think Christian Gonzalez has to be the pick there.
So we're going secondary and back-to-back years. What was the turnout? How was the rookie year for Kyle Hamilton with his first year in Baltimore?
I think PFF had him rated as the number 1 safety in all of football by the end of the year. He started the year tough. They used him more in free safety looks, and that's really not what his skill set is. He's 6'4", 220. He's a thumper. He's a great run defender. Put him in the box. As the year progressed, they gave him more responsibility, but I think Mike McDonald really values using him as that chess piece. Maybe he's your box safety. Maybe he's your nickel defender. Maybe you want to drop him back on certain plays. But as he got a better feel for the game, he's still very young. I think he's 21 or 22 years old. Mm-hmm. As he develops a feel for a game, he really turned into that stud first-round pick that we were all hoping that he would be.
Absolutely. So you guys, another Ravens, that just seems like a Ravens pick. Christian Gonzalez, he's my number 1 corner in this class. A lot of people think the corner back 1 of this class can play in man, can play in zone, great size, over 6'2", great length. Perfect Baltimore Ravens pick. We're going the second round, pick 47. Y'all don't have a pick in this round, right?
We do not have a pick in this round. The Bears have our pick. And from the way the board sees, there is a player who I would take in an absolute heartbeat if I was a Commanders fan.
At what position? Because I think I know.
Give me that big TE out of Georgia. Give me those Georgia boys. Give
Darnell
me a guy
Washington.
who's just can be an absolute weapon. I don't see how you defend a 6'7", 260-pound tight end who can move.
Yep, and it's coming down to two names for me. Are we going back to Georgia for 2 rounds in a row, or are we going to get a nice lengthy cornerback from Mississippi State that I know Fred Smoot is going to be beating down doors to try to get Emmanuel Forbes here for Washington? But I think we need a tight end one here. I think Logan Thomas is a cap casualty, and I think he's going to get the snip this offseason. And while tight end for some people would be a luxury here, I think it is a need. We don't know what Cole Turner is yet. Amari Rodgers and John Bates is a good combo blocking tight end. But Darnell Washington comes in and starts from day one. We're going back to the Georgia Bulldog well, 2 rounds in a row. Easy pick for me. Darnell Washington, come on down. You are commander.
He'd be such a good fit in that offense. A guy who can block really well, who's got soft hands. I mean, Georgia just produces tight end talent like no one's business.
That boy Bowers is going to be, oh my goodness.
Is almost a first-round lock next year. I mean, just talent like crazy for them. Oh,
he's a unit for sure. He is a unit. Oh my God, Bowers and Washington, that tight end combo doesn't make any sense. Like literally, me and you could have done what Stetson Bennett did in that offense because everything is just there for him. Like, I love that Georgia team. Somehow Kirby has convinced these players that the world thought that they were going to suck this year. I don't know who actually thought that, but he made them actually believe that. So we're coming down to pick number 86 for the Ravens in the 3rd round. What are we thinking here?
Okay, so here's where stuff gets interesting. Obviously, a guy like Brandon Joseph would be amazing. He was Kyle Hamilton. He would have been Kyle Hamilton's running mate had Kyle Hamilton gone back for another year. He actually, a couple years ago, had an excellent year at Northwestern to the point where I thought he might have even turned himself into a fringe first-round pick. Mm-hmm. He opted not to do that, though. Who's available at wide receiver right now?
Let's see what wide receivers we got. Hutchinson, Wicks, Trey Palmer.
I like some of these guys, but none of them enough for me to take them at 86. So, yeah, I think I would look back.
I like Parker Washington out of Penn State in like the next round.
I like him, as a 4th or 5th rounder. The tough thing for the Ravens is do you take a guy like McClendon out of Georgia? Do you take an offensive tackle, hope that he can maybe be a swing player? I think there's a really good chance that the Ravens lose their left guard, Ben Powers, this offseason. And you have a guy like Patrick McCarry, who's a swing offensive piece. He can maybe take that spot. You drafted a guy out of Georgia a few years ago, Ben Cleveland, who you'd hope could turn into that guy at left guard. I think in the end, though, the pick that the Ravens make is to continue to pull their players from Texas A&M. I think you take this pass rusher. No, it's Florida A&M. No, my bad. That is how my eyesight struggles.
Yeah, I know how that goes.
So, yeah, let's see what pass rushers are available. I want to see. Oh, man. Oh, okay. So some people might consider this a reach. I think Will McDonald is going to be a star. I would take Will McDonald.
I feel like Isaiah McGuire still being on the board is wild to me because I know he was getting talks of late 1st round, early 2nd round, and now we're in the 4th right now, and he's still on the board.
I think every single site has different values on different guys. I think the Draft Network does it really well. Obviously, their mock machine is under right now. I think their scouts are really good. PFF is different versus NFL Mock Draft Database versus FanSpeak. You're going to find different ratings across the board. Will McDonald, for me, feels like a good mid-round guy who can develop into a pass rusher because the issue for the Ravens is if Justin Houston doesn't come back, then your top pass rushers are Bowser, who's still coming off an injury, Owe, who I think regressed a little, even though his pressures were still good, but I do want to see some of those sacks, and then David Ojabo, who really only played a few games. So getting another young pass rusher in that room, I think, is really important.
How did Ojabo look when he finally got back out there?
He strip sacked Joe Burrow for his first sack in the NFL. So that was pretty nice. But I still think that he's going to be mostly a situational pass rusher in year 2.
Situational. All right, we're down to the 4th. We're at pick 115. And I know I'm pigeonholing myself into cornerback right now. And the guy I was thinking about is the number 149 guy on this board. Syracuse cornerback Garrett Williams. This is a guy who is aggressive, ball hawk, plays. He's a playmaker. He's instinctive. He's somebody who's going to jump a route. We need turnovers on this defense. Kendall Fuller has to be the oldest feeling 27-year-old player in the NFL. He feels like he's 35, but he's 27. His athleticism's getting more on the Cook side, and I need a corner to pair with Benjamin St-Juste on the outside permanently full-time. I would have liked to get that in the first 2 rounds, but we're definitely not going any later than round 4 when it goes to corner. Give me Garrett Williams, and we're now at pick 122 for the Baltimore Ravens. We're now in the 4th round. This is going to be our final pick of this mock. What are you thinking for this pick?
I think we're going on offense. I think we're getting a wide receiver. And if he's there, I'm hoping that this wide receiver from the University of Maryland, and here he is. Give me Raheem Jarrett.
Playmaker.
Take a playmaker right out of their backyard, hopefully not make the same mistake they did years ago when they let Stephon Diggs get to the Minnesota Vikings.
He's electric, man.
Get to the Buffalo Bills. I think you have to take this guy right out of your backyard. I do think the Penn State player, Parker Washington, would have been a good pick as well.
Parker Washington would have been a really good pick. But Raheem Jarrett gives you that return aspect as well. He's just a special playmaker. Put the ball in his hands any way you can get him, and he's going to go out there and get it. How do you feel about the 3 picks you made in this mock, man?
I mean, I would be super happy with a guy like Christian Gonzalez. To your point, I don't think that he's going to be available at 22 when the draft comes around. I don't
even think he's going to be there at 16 for us.
I think you're right. I think there's a chance we might see a run on corners, because the one thing I would say about this draft is I think that it's a really deep cornerback draft, but I don't necessarily think that so far in the process there's a guy who everyone's like, this is the best player. I think you see Cam Smith's name, Porter, Keely Ringo, Christian Gonzalez. And I think all it takes is one team early to take one of these guys. And I think the rest of them are going to go in short order after that. Getting a developmental pass rusher like Will McDonald in the 3rd round would be excellent. And then I do think that the Ravens are going to take a wide receiver. I don't think they're going to spend a 1st round pick. I think they're going to go into free agency for that. But a guy like James Prochet is probably on his way out in Baltimore. A guy like Tylan Wallace is probably on his way out in Baltimore. Time to restock and reset that wide receiver room, hopefully, if Lamar Jackson is back.
Oh, yeah. And I'm feeling great about these first 3 picks. I wanted to go corner early, but Ron does not go corner, and Ron's a boomer. So at this point of his career, I don't expect him to do things differently than how he normally operates. So as much as I want a corner with our pick at 16, I think we're going to go offensive tackle. You're getting a stalwart, old school mauler in Broderick Jones, and you're getting his teammate to go right next to him and play tight end on the next round. A lot of fans would think a tight end is a position that we don't need. I think we get out of Logan Thomas's contract. We got absolutely nothing out of Logan Thomas. And yes, quarterbacks do play a factor in it, but it also plays a factor that he was never that good as fans like to hype it here. He's a solid tight end. We can replace him in the draft and have a young tight end room of Darnell Washington, John Bates, Cole Turner, Amari Rogers. And then in the 4th round, we go get a cornerback to pair with St-Juste and Kendall Fuller, which is Garrett Williams. He could probably play some in the inside as well, because we're going to need a nickel guy. I would prefer us to draft a nickel guy to replace what Bobby McCain does, which is like a hybrid safety nickel corner. So I'm loving the first 3 picks of this mock on my side as well. I think we did pretty good on both sides given where we're picked, and all compensation's not finalized yet. We're going to probably have a comp 3rd at some point.
Yes, I think that this would be an excellent draft if you're a Commanders fan. Like you said, lock up that tackle of the future, get yourself a star tight end. I think the thing that people often forget about Logan Thomas is he did not play tight end in college. He was a college
quarterback for VTech. He was a
quarterback for Virginia Tech. He got drafted as a quarterback, and then he got converted to tight end in 2016, 2 years into his career. He's not necessarily the best in terms of the nuances of the position versus getting a guy like Darnell Washington, who I think could be that big blocking star who also catches a lot of passes.
Hell yeah. So I like how we did on this first set of mock. Obviously, circumstances can change. Big questions need to be answered for those on both sides, Baltimore and Washington, especially regarding the league's most important position. Anything you want to plug or say before you go?
I think everything's good. I mean, first of all, congratulations. I saw you got to 1 million views on this. That's
Appreciate you,
great.
man.
Love that. Been talking to you about this stuff now for 2 years, which is
Hell yeah.
kind of crazy. And I know it's only up for you in terms of this stuff. Hopefully the Commanders shock, get a nice look. Either Howell explodes. I still think there's a really good chance that the Commanders wait until the last round of the draft, snag a guy like Stetson Bennett, which is Taylor Heineke with a championship pedigree player.
Yep.
And Stetson Bennett turns into a star in Washington.
Oh yeah, I honestly just it's a win-win. Howell is either going to hit and be way better than a fifth rounder, or we're gonna suck. And in 2024, we're gonna have our pick of the Caleb Williams, Drake May, Quinn Ewers, Michael Penix Jr., Bo. We're gonna have our pick of the litter of the 2024 QB class, which is said to be the year of the quarterback. They say this all the time. It doesn't always come into fruition, but it's a win-win for us in 2023. That's all I got for right now. That's me and my guy Jake. 2-round mock draft, Baltimore and Washington. Until next week, hail to the Washington Commanders. Appreciate you for coming on, big dog.
Always a pleasure.
Peace.